Welcome to Cadwell Park, and today you join me with the BRSCC Alfa Romeo Championship. An absolutely eclectic mix of cars, GTVs, Alfa Romeo 156s, and a beautiful little 33 there as well. It's over to Andy McEwan to take us through all of the action from race one.
Thanks, Lloyd. Yeah, great variety as ever on this grid. As in damp conditions, the cars line up ahead of our first race of the day. Paul Webster and Graham Seeger have the front row with David Messenger and Keith Waite next, whilst James Thwaites is fifth on the grid. Then the Twin Sparks, led by Tom Hill and James Ford, ahead of Andrew Bourke and Simon Cresswell. Then Richard Ford, Martin Jones and Stephen O'Brien bring up the rear. Well, damp conditions here, but the sun is back out. It's stopped raining, so we're hoping the conditions might improve as the race gets going. Looks like we're maybe missing Jamie Thwaites from the back of the Twin Spark and Power Trophy element of the grid. Away we go then. The first couple of rows launch off the grid first. There's a gap then before the Twin Sparks start their race, and Paul Webster from pole position will lead them into the first corner. David Messenger through into second place. Graham Seeger dropping down into third in the early stages after not a great start there from the outside of row number one in the GTV. As the leaders turn their way through Charlie's, the Twin Spark cars launch off the line as well. Tom Hill there, the white and blue car on the right of the screen, will again hold on to pole position in the race lead into the first corner. James Ford and Andrew Bourke appear to be slotting in behind. Tom Hill, the early points leader in the Twin Spark element of the championship, but was winless last time out at Snetterton. In fact, only had one podium finish out of the two races, having won both of the encounters at Brands Hatch at the start of the season. Tom Hill now needs to try and find a return to form, but he leads the Twin Sparks out of Charlie's for the first time. Fourth place there for Simon Cresswell. Fifth is Richard Ford, the number 31 car, who has not been off the podium all year actually. 3 second place finishes in the most recent 3 races. We're on board now with the number 31 Alfa Romeo 156. The windscreen wiper's still on, despite the fact it's not raining anymore. There is still a lot of spray being kicked up by the cars in front. This is a narrow circuit as well, so the fact it's quite greasy out there will certainly not be helping the drivers. At the head of the field, meanwhile, it's all changed already, because into the race lead now has gone Graham Seeger by the looks of it. Paul Webster down to second place, and third place appears to be David Messenger. So Dave Messenger still there with them, but the GTV is back out in front now. I wonder whether or not Graham Seeger is going to be able to pull away. We're on board with Dave Messenger in third position over the mountain into the Hall Bends. This is a devilishly tricky part of the circuit in the best of conditions. Now that it's slippery and damp out there, it's going to be even more tippy-toe stuff to try and stay on the black stuff, because once you're on the grass, a fairly sizable impact with the parries is pretty much inevitable. Through the right-hander comes the 156 in third place. It's a field full of 156s here this weekend, both in the Power Trophy and in the Twin Sparks. The race leader, though, Graham Seeger, the lead modified car as well, and the two cars behind him, Webster and Messenger, fighting for the Power Trophy class lead. Across the line they go then at the end of lap number one, and looking to the inside line here is Dave Messenger. Can he find a way through? He's looking, he's almost there, but I don't think he's quite close to get fully alongside the pole sitter, Paul Webster, whose qualifying time was about a second and a half quicker than anybody else, but in these now very damp conditions, he's not finding things quite as easy. Through Charlie's, the second part of Charlie's there that is so vital to a good lap time, because it launches him onto this long park straight, which is anything but straight, and that means that running side by side through even this part of the circuit is not easy. Dave Messenger finding that as he tried to duck this way and that to get alongside Paul Webster. He's looking back to the inside line though, and he's later on the brakes into Park Corner, and Dave Messenger will now go through into second position. That was a nice move. He certainly looked a bit quicker than Paul Webster, despite the fact that Paul had set that pole position time. But in these damp racing conditions, he seems to maybe be lacking a bit of confidence. That could be set up, it could be just the fact that his driving style maybe doesn't particularly suit these very, very tricky conditions. But maybe that he's just minding his P's and Q's here in the early stages, knowing that it's all too easy to make a mistake and damage your car in the early stages of the race, and then find yourself missing out on an opportunity maybe to go and fight for a race victory later on. But there is Paul Webster, the silver car, in third position, car number 66, and he is is already losing touch to the very, very rapid Dave Messenger, who at this point actually looks like he's a bit quicker than the race leader Graham Seeger, and I think that lead gap is starting to come down a bit now. Into the hallbands, there is Seeger, there is Messenger in second position, looming ever larger in his mirrors. Graham Seeger certainly not going to have this all his own way. These are, as I've mentioned, both leading their respective classes already, but very much some stiff competition between the modified and power trophy cars as to who gets the overall race victories. So far this year, it has been a modified car that has won every one of the 4 races this season. Barry McMahon, in his very rapid 156, won the first 3 races of the year before having issues at Snetterton in race 2, allowing Richard Thurvin to take the victory in his Lancia Delta Integrale. Neither of those two, though, have made the trip to the northeast of the country this weekend, which has allowed possibly a few different race winners. Bit of a sideways moment back in the twin spark part of the race there for the second place man James Ford, who's been caught, it would seem, by Andrew Bourke in 3rd position. James Ford making his first appearance of the season this weekend. Good to have the 147 of Stephen O'Brien out as well. There he is, the white and blue car. And indeed Martin Jones as well. In fact, all the way round, that is, O'Brien ahead of Martin Jones. Martin Jones is the orange and white example just behind. They're at the tail end of the twin spark Cup, but having a nice little battle, these two. Shorter wheelbase car, of course, the 147, so that's maybe why they're struggling a bit this weekend. This ought to be a circuit, in theory, that would suit the shorter wheelbase car, but in the wet, the bigger the platform is, the more grip you are likely to have, so that's possibly why they're struggling against some of the slightly bigger 156s. Still putting on a nice show here at the back of the field. Keeping up the spray on this still very wet track. It may be getting a bit less wet than it was, but it certainly couldn't be called dry just yet. These cars, though, particularly in the Twin Spark Cup, all running on grooved tyres anyway, so there's no tyre changing to worry about. They're on tyres that can, in theory, handle both the dry and the wet conditions, but of course there still is very much a lack of grip in the wet, regardless what tyres you're on. Drop down the hill into Mansfield, and Stephen O'Brien just trying to manage this gap and also trying to catch, I think that's Richard Ford in front of him perhaps, who, as I said, has not been off the podium yet this year, but this weekend doesn't quite seem to have the performance that he's had at Brands Hatch and Snetterton earlier on in the year, and looks as though he may be finishing outside of the top 3 for the first time. On board with Richard now, looking ahead and then also looking behind at the 147s behind him. Great view here through the hall bends of what the driver can see, which is actually relatively little, because as you can see, it's far from flat. There is no flat surface really here at Cadwell Park. The hall bends in particular are very, very undulating, and that not only means that your line of sight is disrupted going into the corners, so you can't really see where you're going, but also means the car gets unsettled, and Richard's car gets very unsettled through the right-hander at Barn that brings them out onto the pit straight again. Very, very challenging conditions, and under the trees it tends to get a little bit slimy, a little bit more greasy, and that can really, really cause some issues for the drivers. Across the start-finish line they go then. Onto another lap of the Cadwell Park circuit. No real change in the order so far amongst the twin sparks. It's actually been the modified and power trophy cars at the head of the field that have been jockeying for position a bit more. I can tell you Graham Seeger is still leading in the for the outright race lead, and therefore, of course, the modified category. The 44 car of Martin Jones down the park straight through that big dip in the middle of the road, and then up to the braking zone at Park Corner. Lots of wheel spin there as he tries to get the power down through the right-hander, and then Chris Curve, this corner that sort of goes on and on and on and on and on, and then all of a sudden you're at the top of the gooseneck, which can really proved to be a very, very challenging corner, again, even in the dry. Begin to tell you how difficult Cadwell Park is in the wet. The slightest moment and you're off, and it's such an unforgiving circuit as well that you really don't want to be having too many mistakes, because they can be costly. Leaders then across the start-finish line, and Graham Seeger still not getting away here from Dave Messenger. They've Graham's sort of got the gap pegged now, though. David isn't getting any closer to him. Graham Seeger, the race leader, managing the margin, but through the first couple of corners here it is maybe coming down again slightly. So at different parts of the circuit it would appear that maybe the 156 has an advantage, and then at other parts of the circuit that could be where the GTV is a bit stronger. There is the number 5 car leading the way, Graham Seeger making his first appearance of the season as well. That's a strange thing to say, because Graham has been a great supporter of this championship in recent years, but he hasn't been able to get out for the first 2 rounds. He'll be glad that on his return to the championship he's immediately back on the pace, but he's going to have some stiff competition here from the leading Power Trophy car of Dave Messenger, who right on board with again. He's really closing this gap down on this lap as we now approach half race distance. Is he going to be able to get the lead away through the right at the gooseneck? Then they plunge off the edge of the world through the left-hander. Dropping downhill, is the 156 close enough? We know that David is not lacking confidence under braking. Now, we saw that move he made on Paul Webster a few laps ago, and he's really made some gains there on the GTV through the left-hander. So the battle for the lead is well and truly joined now towards the mountain section, but it's really single file now from here to the start-finish line. So Dave Messenger will have to maybe try and sit on the coattails of Graham Seeger and force a mistake out of the GTV. Really impressed with this pace being shown by Dave Messenger here. Again, he's also making his first appearance of the season. Indeed, Graham Seeger is the only modified or Power Trophy driver here this weekend. Sorry, excuse me, Paul Webster is the only modified or Power Trophy driver here this weekend who has competed in previous rounds. He's had one podium position for his trouble. Looks as though he's going to get another one here today, but he's some way adrift of these two. It's through the second half of the lap, isn't it? The more tight technical area that the GTV, again with its slightly wider platform, maybe has a bit more stability and is able to get away from Dave Messenger. Messenger, though, trying his best to stay with him. Back onto another lap, and again the gap is sort of as it was at the start of the previous lap. No significant gain made through the second part of Charlie's, avoiding the curbs, and in fact all of a sudden Messenger has really dropped back at the start of this lap. So the part of the circuit where he made some good ground a lap ago seems to have struggled on this occasion. I wonder whether maybe there was a mistake or something, but there you can see Graham Seeger is now quite a long way ahead of Dave Messenger. And there Paul Webster is starting to get closer again in third as he starts to grow a bit more accustomed to the conditions. Just set a personal best lap as the third place man. On board with Richard Ford here in the twin spark element of the race, who's got no company behind him anymore, so he's been able to pull away from the two 147s. He's not really able to catch the race leader, and then he gets all out of shape through the first corner, and the barrier is looming. Oh, Richard Ford, that's a real shame. He's into the barrier not once but twice. That will have done significant damage, I'm sure, to the right-hand side of the car. We can just about see that the front bumper is dislodged, and in fact the red flag is going to fly. Not because it was a particularly serious accident, but because the car is in a dangerous area and would require, at the bare minimum, a safety car, and in fact the red flag has flown. So Seeger with the victory. Dave Messenger is second, but wins the Power Trophy, with Paul Webster third. Tom Hill gets his third victory of the season in the Twin Spark Cup, with James Ford second and Andrew Bork rounding out the podium finishers. The non-finish for Martin Jones as well, for reasons unknown, and the red flag caused by the off for Richard Ford.
Graham, that looked a little bit of a handful out there, especially with the changing weather conditions.
Yeah, it was. It was a last-minute decision that the rain came very late, as you know, and we had to change to wet tyres, of which I haven't got the best quality wet tyres in the world. But yeah, we put them on. It was the right decision to go with them because although the rain had stopped, it was still very, very wet out there. There's no way I could control it on slicks. Yeah, it then meant there's a great leveller, of course, because the supercharger, the power of the supercharger of the Peak Alpha GTV has less benefit because all you're doing is wheel spinning. So yeah, it was a much tighter race, and I had Dave and pushing me harder. So yeah, and yeah, it was good fun. It was good fun.
He looked closer to you than you felt comfortable.
Yeah, it was at times, yeah, and I was just always worried that he was going to miss his braking point, but fortunately he didn't. So yeah, it was good. It was good.
Well, hopefully tomorrow's going to be a little bit drier out there and you can get to exploit the full power of the GTV. We look forward to seeing you out there tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being out in the Peak Alpha GTV. It's just such a well-prepared car. It's just a credit to Peak Alpha.
Brilliant. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Dave, that was a little bit interesting with the rain beforehand. How did you manage to get the right setup, and more importantly, what was it like catching up with Graham in front?
Yeah, I was surprised to be hanging on to Graham, to be fair. I'd not driven on wet tyres before. It's the first time I've been in the Twin Spark Trophy, so it was a big learning curve for me, but the tyres were fantastic. Really behaved really well and really predictable, so I got on with it straight away and yeah, really enjoyed it.
Was it a case of just following Graham's wheel tracks and making sure you didn't run into the back of him?
Yeah, well, to be fair, I was behind Paul Webster for the first lap, but after I got past Paul, very much following Graham's experience, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was really good.
Hopefully it's not going to be quite so bad tomorrow. What are you hoping for?
More rain.
Well, we look forward to seeing you out there tomorrow, and we'll see what the weather does.
Thank you very much.
Paul, the rain's normally quite a leveller, and it certainly enabled you guys to keep up with Graham up the front.
Yeah, it did. I was a lot quicker in qualifying, and I thought I had a good chance, but the power of Graham's car just takes him away down the straights. You can't do anything. I got off the line first. I had a comfortable lead going up the hill, but then as soon as we got on the straight, Graham just came down the inside of me and Dave, and you just got to let him go. But it was a bit disappointing, but that's the rain for you.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's I guess the important thing is keeping the car on the track rather than going off and coming away with a finish.
Yeah, well, Dave went off towards the end of the race, and I got in front of him to get second, but then on count back it went to third, so it was a bit disappointing for that, because I was in front when we finished the last lap, but I think it goes to the slowest car on the same lap, so that was a bit disappointing having got into second, but third is third, and like you say, it was on the circuit and it points. So.
And tomorrow, rain, dry, what's your preference?
Well, I was 4 seconds quicker than Dave yesterday, and 2 seconds quicker than Graham in qualifying. So I'm hopeful of a good race, but I'm going to be starting behind him, and that'll be the problem. I'm normally quicker off the line, but I can see I'm going to get blocked behind them, I think.
Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. It should be a fantastic race either way. Enjoy your celebrations tonight.
Thank you.